So as I plan my first trip to Japan, one of the stops is, of course, going to be the life-size Gundam at Drive City, Tokyo, Odaiba. So, I was talking with my dad, who's a car buff, a plane buff, and a history buff, and said, you know, it's basically a history museum about tanks with legs. You should come along. He responded with, son, I would... He doesn't really talk like that, but I get the feeling you want him to talk like that, so anyway. Son, I would enjoy doing the Gundam thing and looking at the Gundam, but I don't know very much about Gundam. What can you tell me about the Gundam? Now, a normal person would have just sat him down and talked to him about Gundam, but apparently I've got some weird compulsion to turn it into a video, so let's have some fun with this. The Gundam series is kind of a big deal. First airing in 1979, Gundam was the new ambitious kid on the block in a TV land ruled by what would later be known as the Super Robots. Giant machines fighting space invaders, piloted by hotshot idiots, powered by the human will to win, or something ridiculous like that. There were dozens of shows at that point, so Gundam coming along was a bit of an odd child. But you're probably wondering why. Well, let's start with the biggest draw. The machines were giant, sure, but the designs make sense on paper. They had identifiable power sources, cameras, radars, maintenance crews. They were real robots. As far as speculative fiction was concerned, they were the real thing. Even the space invaders were people. Flesh and blood human beings that decided to immigrate off Earth for some reason to orbital colonies that are now at war with the Earth's government over resources, independence, or just plain fear. And finally, there are the pilots. The biggest conformity and the biggest deviation to the norm back then. Yes, majority of Gundam protagonists are indeed average around 16 to 14 years of age. However, they are either normal everyday boys. Yes, sadly they're all boys. More on that later. Like Amuro Ray or Kira Yamato, who are kind of childish and cowardly until they find the will to fight. Or severely emotional damaged heroes like Hiro Yui or Setsuna F-Sei or Mikazuki August, who are already killing and murdering people left, right, and center, but must find the reason they fight. In a time where every pilot was trying to be a gutsy idiot like Kabuto Koji, this is new and strange and interesting. They're people. Let me tell you, hooking new Gundam fans can be a massive challenge because Gundam in itself is massive. And there's this big wall to the untrained eye because no one can sparse anything apart from it. There's just so much to look at. Where do you start? I'm going to break down the general makeup of what makes Gundam, well, Gundam. As much as I want to talk about each individual timeline so you can find what fits your flavor and not leave anything out, there's just so much to talk about, and I do not have the time to put it into a single video. Sorry, Domon. Let's start with a relatable component in a lot of storytelling. The Underdog Story. Yes, at its core, Gundam is an underdog story. We are almost always siding with the losing side at first. Be it Earth, the colonies, or some over-glorified analog of Japan. The story is usually about how a few good men and women can change the course of the war by leaping into action when needed. The show tends to revolve around a single ship, in a tight spot, with one Gundam pilot, or a boy band-style team of Gundam pilots, of about 4 or 5, fighting against overwhelming odds, conflicting philosophies, but they, and their machines, have the power to change the world, and change it they must. Now, for something as old as Gundam, there are a few expectations for such a grand franchise. The coming-of-age story, the war is hell angle, and of course, the guy in the mask! Now, don't get the wrong impression here. While the guy in the mask is as old as Gundam itself, started and popularized by the iconic Char Aznable, you can never trust the guy in the mask. He exists as a counterpoint to the hero, whether he be a tragic, relatable figure or a well-meaning extremist. He tends to be a wildly ambitious and deceitful individual doing whatever it takes to accomplish his designs. Unfortunately, not all guys in the masks are created equal. Fantastic ones like Zex and Vidar will always outstrip the likes of Rao or Mr. Bushido, with both better writing, motives, and endgames. In any case, as long as there is Gundam, there will always be some jackass heartthrob with a sexy voice to screw with the hero and the fan base. As mentioned above, Gundam is all about war. Except for G Gundam in the Build series. And it pulls no punches in delivering that narrative. Death, discrimination, profiteering, assassination, child soldiers, PTSD, genocide. It paints a very clear picture that the stories and the events you see are ones that no one would like to be experiencing. But if they just lay down and die, then they would just be bystanders who let the enemy win. Some of these shows handle it well. Others are a bit ham-fisted. But the fact remains true. War is, to understate it a little bit, horrible. But when it's already upon you, what do? These topics must be handled with care, and Gundam, for the most part, is nearly Shakespearean with its level of honest care about the tragedies of war. In closing, Gundam is a wonderful, hold nothing back, speculative fiction on war, people, and the evolution of the human race. On one hand, we are out in space. We are living in the stars, making amazing strides in technology and sciences. On the other, we are still senselessly killing each other in the name of justice and peace. Our minds still preoccupied by hate and prejudice to really achieve our true potential. Each series has its own questions. Look, moral compass, style, flavor. It has stood and continues to stand the test of time, and it should be shared and enjoyed with generations new and old, for the hard questions and truths it brings out. For as bleak as war and death and sorrow is, there is always a glimmer of hope for the future.
People